This is the story I never thought I'd tell. And it begins, as these things tend to do, with a trampoline. See, when I was a kid, every year my mom's side of the family would have a reunion at a beach house in San Juan Capistrano, a beach town in California with a beach so awful that even the fish are like, no, we're good. We're talking a beachfront lined with razor-sharp rocks, icy cold waters, and lifeguards who could only generously be considered conscious. Now, to compensate for the apocalyptic awfulness of the beach, my family set up a trampoline to keep me and my seemingly infinite number of cousins occupied. Catholic. Now, this was, of course, the days before we had safety nets around trampolines, so one of our favorite activities was to launch each other so high into the air that we would fly off of the trampoline and into the aforementioned razor-sharp rocks that line the beach. We did not have many friends. Anyway, it was the summer of '98. My sister, who was 11 at the time, wanted the trampoline to herself, and I wouldn't let her because I was 8 and inherently terrible. So she went into the house, and in a move that I can only describe as a revenge scheme worthy of a Bond villain, told my mother that I wanted to know what sex was. My mother called me into the house, her finger outstretched and beckoning like some kind of Freudian nightmare. I climbed the stairs like a man heading to his execution. The last sound I heard before the door slammed behind me was my sister jumping up and down on my beloved trampoline. Now, for what it was, my mom did a pretty decent job. I mean, she wasn't prepared to give the talk, so, you know, she covered the basic biology, all that kind of stuff. But there's something about your mother holding out her hand, extending her finger, and saying, when a man gets excited, his dick, which was the name of my grandfather, her father, so, you know, nothing traumatizing about that. His dick gets hard and becomes a boner. She said boner to an 8-year-old. And he then inserts it into the woman's vagina. Like so.
Woo! Yeah. No. No. Woo!
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Sigh. I think it lasted about 15 minutes, but my brain short-circuited around the word vagina, so time became difficult to judge. When I walked out of the room, shell-shocked like an 8-year-old who had seen things, I looked out of the window and saw my sister jumping up and down on the trampoline without a care in the world. Some part of me knew that even then, trampolines would never be quite as fun again. The Christmas of 2000 saw the arrival of the air hog to the Diddy household. Created by Spin Master, these plastic behemoths are basically shampoo bottles strapped to foam wings that, when pressurized with air, can be thrown the length of a football field. Awesome job, son. Thanks, Dad. Will this repair our broken relationship? Probably not. Every Christmas saw one of these gifts for me. My parents really wanted to try to get me outside, you know, and away from my computer games, but I mean, that was impossible because that math was not going to blast itself. So, after a few times playing with it, the air hog went the way of all such gifts banished to the deepest, darkest corner of my closet. It was there that I discovered it some 2 years later, at the ripe old age of 12, the plane itself all crumpled and beyond repair. But, more importantly to my hormone-rampaging, pubescent mind, the air pump, that actual air pump that I had shipped out from San Diego in the vaguest conversation I've ever had with my father. Exactly. Its purple and yellow body contrasting sharply with the green carpet underneath. And it called out to me like a siren would a sailor. Now, when my mother had given me the talk, she didn't really go much beyond the biological, and certainly left out the subtleties and nuances of things like oral sex, or even the definition of things like oral sex. So, when I heard the term blowjob for the first time, I assumed it just meant what it said. A blowjob was blowing on a penis until, you know, something happened. I didn't know many of the details, but I knew in that moment it was something I wanted more than anything on earth. So, late one night, when I could hear the telltale signs of my dad snoring and the occasional patter of my dog's paws on the tile, I ducked into the closet and I pulled out the air pump. After a few preliminary puffs against my skin, I realized this really wasn't doing it for me. But, I mean, this was a blowjob, you know, a freaking blowjob, the blowiest of jobs. Surely it had to be awesome, so I did what any kid would do. I stuck the end of the air pump into my penis and began pumping air into my urethra. Stay with me!
Oh my God.
I don't know how many of you have had air pumped directly into your urethra. But it's not exactly a pleasant experience. So, 3 out of 10. Maybe 4. But, you know, I just assumed that the pain was a part of it, that this was what a blowjob was, and I was the weird one for not enjoying it. So, there I went, you know, just pumping away, until I literally felt like I was about to burst like a balloon. Which I was, technically. And, you know, of course nothing happened, you know, like climax-wise, but I felt accomplished. Adult. Like a kid looking out a window at a trampoline and knowing that the world was never going to be the same again. It felt empowering in that way that self-discovery always kind of ends up being. So, every day for the next 2 weeks, I kept up my little love affair. Our only communication being the stickers that adorned her sides, such as "push pump all the way down for maximum performance," and a sign declaring that she was a docking station, in irony that would hit me 14 years later with a resigned, "God damn it." But they were strangely tender, our little midnight rendezvous. You know, it was me and this hunk of plastic against the world, and nothing would stop us. And then, on the 15th day of our lovemaking, I got up in the middle of the night, went into the bathroom, and, penis untouched, came harder than I've ever come in my life. I'm talking a diluvian deluge of splooge and air, which I think makes me one of the only men in history to queef. Ladies ladies. And this was made all the stranger by the fact that I was 12 years old and I had no idea what the hell was coming out of me. As I sat on the toilet recoiling in the combination of terror and delight that comes after one's first orgasm, I swore that I would never touch that pump again, that I would banish it to the deepest, darkest corner of my closet, and that no one would ever have to know. And you know, I would, of course, discover more traditional means of masturbation. You know, your old reliable, your stranger's handshake, your fleshlight, ladies. But every now and again, my mind would wander back to that old pump. And as strange as it sounds, some secret part of me would long for those days of discovery. Desire has always been something of a finicky concept for me. And that's not just because I was raised Catholic, but I mean, yeah, probably. I think it's because desire breaks you down to your primal instincts, you know, those uncontrollable urges when you see something and want it with the very core of your being. And as someone who has always lived very much in my head, it's very hard to take orders dictated solely by my head. And, but I think and you know, even when I would start having sex, you know, for the first time, it always felt like a lessening of myself, you know, like I was reverting back to that 12-year-old who was sitting on a toilet thinking his penis was exploding and the world was ending. More and more lately, I've been thinking it's not a lessening or something that you should hide in the corner of your closet. It's an awakening, a discovery, an emboldening of yourself beyond the physical, something that grabs you, slaps you in the face and says, stop thinking. It's jumping up and down on a trampoline above razor-sharp rocks. It's putting your boner in a woman's vagina. It's getting up in front of a group of strangers and telling the story you never thought you'd tell.